Night arrives quietly, but the mind does not follow. In the stillness, old voices return. Conversations long finished begin again, replayed with sharper clarity than when they first happened. Words are rearranged, pauses are analyzed, silences grow heavier. What once seemed small now feels unresolved. This is not nostalgia, and it is not regret alone. It is the mind searching for something it did not find when the world was awake. When distraction fades, memory steps forward. And in the dark, the psyche asks questions it postponed during the day. When the world grows quiet, the mind becomes alert. Without the noise of the day to anchor attention, awareness drifts inward. Thoughts that waited patiently now rise to the surface. Conversations return not because they are important in the present, but because they were incomplete in the moment they occurred. Something was left unsaid, something was misunderstood, or something was felt but never fully processed. This experience is deeply human. During the day, attention is borrowed by urgency, tasks, movement, voices, expectations. The mind prioritizes survival over reflection. It stores emotional fragments quickly, promising to return to them later. Night becomes that later. The absence of distraction removes the brain's ability to postpone emotional accounting. Recognition begins here. You notice that the same interactions return repeatedly. Not random memories, but specific moments charged with emotion. A sentence spoken too quickly, a response that felt inadequate, a silence that carried meaning. These moments reappear because the mind senses imbalance. It is not searching for self-criticism, it is searching for coherence. Psychology refers to this as unfinished emotional processing. When an interaction creates uncertainty about safety, belonging, or self-worth, the brain keeps it active. Social interactions are not neutral events to the nervous system. They carry implications about acceptance and threat. And when the brain does not feel certain about the outcome, it continues to simulate the scenario, hoping repetition will produce resolution. At night, emotional awareness sharpens. Without external feedback, internal narratives gain volume. You may feel frustration toward your own responses, or tenderness for the version of yourself who tried to navigate complexity in real time. The replay is not punishment. It is a form of care, misguided perhaps, but protective in intent. This is also where inner conflict begins. Part of you wants the mind to rest, to let the past remain past. Another part fears that letting go means missing something important. So the mind stays alert, looping gently, persistently. Not because it enjoys discomfort, but because it equates vigilance with safety. Recognition deepens when you notice the emotional tone beneath the thoughts. Often it is not the conversation itself that matters, but what it represents. A desire to be understood, a fear of having disappointed someone, a longing for clarity. These needs do not disappear when ignored, they wait. In this early stage, nothing is required. No correction, no reframing, only awareness. To notice that the mind is not betraying you in the quiet, it is speaking in the only language it has when the world stops responding. And in that recognition, the first layer of understanding settles softly, making space for what will follow. As awareness settles, curiosity naturally follows. Not curiosity about the memory itself, but about why it refuses to rest. Psychology offers a gentle answer. The mind is not replaying the past for punishment. It is attempting completion. The brain is a prediction-making organ designed to anticipate outcomes and reduce uncertainty. When a social interaction ends without emotional clarity, the system stays active, searching for resolution that never arrived in real time. During sleep-adjacent states, the brain enters memory consolidation. Experiences from the day are sorted, strengthened, or softened. Emotional memories receive special attention. They are prioritized because they carry information about safety, belonging, and social standing. A conversation that triggered confusion or vulnerability signals potential threat, not physical, but relational. And relational uncertainty is processed with the same seriousness as physical danger. The nervous system does not distinguish between them. This is where science meets emotion. The amygdala, responsible for detecting threat, remains sensitive to unresolved social cues. A raised eyebrow, a delayed response, an ambiguous tone. When these signals are left unexplained, the amygdala keeps them active, urging the mind to revisit the moment. The prefrontal cortex attempts to intervene, replaying the conversation in different variations, hoping logic might succeed where emotion did not. This internal dialogue is the brain's attempt to regain control. There's also the role of counterfactual thinking, the mental simulation of alternative outcomes. At night, the mind asks, what if? What if the words had been different? What if silence meant something else? What if clarity could still be found? These questions are not rooted in regret alone. They are rooted in the human need to understand cause and effect within relationships. The brain wants to learn, to prevent future harm, to protect identity. Yet this process creates resistance. You may notice frustration with the mind's persistence, a desire to shut it down, to force stillness. But resistance often intensifies the loop. When the mind senses that a thought is being suppressed, it interprets suppression as danger. The loop tightens, the replay sharpens. The deeper conflict emerges here. Part of the psyche understands that the conversation is over. Another part believes its meaning is still unfolding. This tension keeps the memory alive, not because the past has power, but because understanding has not yet settled. Importantly, this process is not a flaw. It is an overextension of a protective system. The same mechanism that allows humans to learn from experience can become relentless when emotional closure is absent. The mind keeps returning, not to hurt you, but to ensure you are prepared. In recognizing this, something softens. The replay is no longer seen as an enemy. It is seen as a signal, a sign that something mattered, that connection mattered, and that the mind, in its own imperfect way, is still trying to care for what once felt uncertain. Eventually, fatigue sets in. Not the exhaustion of sleeplessness alone, but the quiet weariness of circling the same emotional ground. And in that moment, something shifts. The mind does not resolve the memory through answers. It resolves it through understanding. This is the turning point. When the urge to fix the conversation loosens and curiosity replaces control. You begin to notice that the replay is not asking for correction, it is asking for acknowledgement. The emotion beneath the memory wants to be felt without being edited. Psychology calls this integration, the process of allowing experience to be absorbed rather than managed. Healing here does not arrive as silence, it arrives as space. The space to let the memory exist without interrogation, without rewriting dialogue, without assigning fault. When resistance fades, the nervous system receives a new signal. There's no threat here anymore. And slowly the loop loses intensity. Neuroscience supports this shift. When emotional memories are met with acceptance rather than suppression, the amygdala reduces its alert response. The prefrontal cortex no longer needs to override emotion. The brain updates its assessment. The memory moves from active rehearsal to contextual storage. It becomes part of the past, rather than a demand on the present. This does not mean the conversations disappear. Some return occasionally like echoes in a quiet room, but their tone changes. They carry less urgency, less charge. They no longer arrive with accusation or anxiety, but with information. They remind you of sensitivity, of care, of the desire to connect meaningfully. And these are not weaknesses. They are markers of depth. There is a subtle integration that follows. You begin to trust that not every interaction requires resolution to be complete, that some moments shape you without needing correction. That understanding does not always come through answers, but through acceptance of ambiguity. The night becomes gentler. Thoughts still arrive, but they do not demand attention. They pass through awareness without attachment. Sleep returns not because the mind is empty, but because it feels safe enough to rest. In this closing awareness, the replayed conversations reveal their final truth. They were never about perfection. They were about meaning. And once meaning is felt rather than chased, the mind releases its grip. The echoes soften, the room grows still, and in that stillness there is no silence to fear, only the quiet reassurance that the mind, once heard, knows when to let go.